Hello. Hello, everybody. This is Jesse Jager with the Poverello Center. We're really excited to have you joining us today for our September online supporter update. And you'll notice that we're going to be doing things a little bit differently this time, since we have such a large group. We're not going to do introductions or anything like that, just because it would take, I think, our whole meeting just for everybody to introduce themselves. Just so we can get through presentations and stuff like that too, we're going to ask folks that if you'd like to ask a question, go ahead and put that in the chat box or raise your hand, and then we will unmute you for asking that question. This is going to be one of the first times we've done like a big group like this and passing off who's sharing their screens and everything. So forgive us for any technical difficulties we have as we go along. We're going to make our way through this as best as possible. Lastly, I'll just say that we do have some members of the media joining us. So know that they are on the video as well, and that we will be recording this session so that it can be shared on our social media and on our website for those who could not attend, because we feel like our friends at the city and the county have lots of really important information that I think others are going to want to know about. So that's kind of the gist of where we're at right now. Just going to run through what our agenda is for today. We're going to start off with Emily Armstrong, who is with the city of Missoula and is the coordinator for the 10-year plan and homelessness. And she'll talk a little bit about some of the work that she's been working on. Then we're gonna have Emily Harris-Shears, who is also from the city and also named Emily. And so hopefully that won't be too confusing. And she is gonna talk some more about some of the Housing Trust Fund and some of the work that they're doing on that front. And then we've got Jordan Lyons from the county, who is going to talk a little bit about some of the similar work that's happening at the county level. Then we'll close out with just a few updates about how you all can, if you want to step in and help and support and do things, some upcoming opportunities for how we might be able to, what the POV will be up to and where we can get support in the near future. So that is kind of where we're at right now. With that said, I think that I'm going to go ahead and just pass it off to Emily right away, and we'll go from there. Emily, can you unmute yourself, or should I unmute you?
I can unmute. Awesome. Thanks, Jesse. And thanks to all of you for being here. I'm Emily Armstrong, she, her pronouns, and I am the Reaching Home Manager with the City of Missoula. I do have a PowerPoint, so I'm going to pull that up real quick. Try to share my screen. Let's see, hopefully this all works. Share. Let me do this. Okay, can you all see that? Yay. Okay, perfect. Let me just minimize the screen here so I can see it better. Okay, so like I said, I'm with the City of Missoula Community Planning, Development, and Innovation, and I'm just going to do a pretty quick broad strokes overview of houselessness in Missoula, some of the initiatives at the city and county level. You know, we don't have a ton of time, so I won't go into a ton of depth, but kind of just an overview of some of the things we're working on and some of the larger initiatives and some of our value focuses right now. Okay, so some of our main city-county initiatives right now. The temporary safe outdoor space was something that was erected during the pandemic, still ongoing. It was started in December of 2020 and has been going ever since. And so that's been a joint effort. The county has been an integral agency in making that a success. In partnership with some of our private partners, the United Way, Hope Rescue Mission, the Human Resource Council has been deeply involved in helping with funding and has really become a collective effort, but the county has been very involved in that space, which is down by the Buckhouse Bridge. It is a site that has 20 tents that each fit 2 people, and capacity has been somewhere around 25, give or take, individuals for the entirety of its operation thus far. So that's one of the big things that the county has really been spending a lot of time on over the past year or so, and a little bit less than a year. Now more initiatives are kind of coming down the pike as we see a greater need in our community, both at a city and a county level. So Operation Shelter was something that came about in about May or so about this year. And it came about as the result of, like I said, kind of an increased need and increased demand for more support for individuals, our neighbors who are unhoused and needing places to shelter safely, especially folks who we're seeing an increase in folks who are experiencing houselessness for the first time as a result of the pandemic and changing financial and economic situations. And so Operation Shelter is a joint city-county effort to basically respond to that, figure out what we can do to increase capacity in our community for these folks and to meet folks where they are. So looking at a continuum of options of housing support, whether that's a place just for safe legal camping, a place to park an RV, a place like the safe outdoor space where there's really high service elements and folks are really invested in spending a lot of time working one-on-one or in small groups to move folks towards housing goals, whether it's a transitional space for folks who already have a voucher or are very far along their journey towards a permanent home, but just haven't quite found the space yet for whatever reason, whether that's housing stock or other factors, and just need a place to stay while they're kind of figuring out those final pieces. Or one of the many other options, each individual's circumstance is unique. And so really just trying to be responsive to that. So Operation Shelter has evolved from like a very quick stand-up effort run by our incident command team through the county to identify spaces and options and what we can do, kind of really get us moving on the path. And the incident command team has kind of stepped out, and now it's becoming a city-county staff effort to look at some of the spaces that the incident command team identified as options for some of the safe legal camping, high service shelter spaces, transitional shelter spaces, and figure out financially and based on zoning and locations what's actually feasible, and then hopefully in the not too far future figuring out actual services components and starting to get some of those spaces up and running. Along with that Operation Shelter, one of the things that came out of that was a housing support mobile care team. So we've had a few different positions in our Missoula coordinated entry system that were intended to support our system as a whole. We had a housing navigator, a landlord liaison, and a housing retention specialist. And we've seen success in some of those positions, and also just due to the reality on the ground that some of those positions aren't necessarily quite what we need right now. So we have kind of adapted our approach with those positions and are looking at creating a housing support mobile care team that for the immediate future will be a team of really just housing support specialists, kind of on a broad scale, intended to go to some of these new sites and some existing sites, the emergency winter shelter, maybe the Broadway location, and various other locations where we have neighbors who are unhoused, to work closely with them to get folks connected to our Missoula coordinated entry system and just really provide that in-person contact and support contact to help move folks forward and figure out where there are gaps and how we can better support our neighbors. So that was actually just received some funding from the city side, and we're waiting for some funding confirmations from the county side, but hopefully we'll be moving forward with that kind of in tandem with the Operation Shelter space and finance pieces as they get sorted out over the next month or so. And then the city also just recently committed extra additional funding to support the Poverello Center, operational support and outreach support, as well as more funding for the emergency winter shelter. And we are also still working on the Trinity Navigation Center. In particular, the city is really focused on figuring out the program and services components of that center, and is moving towards a request for proposal process to figure out who may be the provider at that site that we're very excited to launch. So just a little bit more information on some of the affordable housing developments that are coming out. And I know Emily Harris-Shears will be on after me to talk more about affordable housing in Missoula as a whole, but Trinity and Villaggio are coming on site hopefully within the next 1 to 3 years. It's a little bit hard to predict exact building and final deadlines right now based on building costs and all of the different factors that COVID kind of rolled out unexpectedly. But the Trinity site, just as kind of a very high level breakdown, will have 2 locations. And there's a Cooley site and a Mullen site. So 2 different sites with apartment homes, affordable apartment homes. The Cooley site will have 72 apartment homes that will be 2, 3, and 4 bedrooms. And then the Mullen site will have 100 apartment homes that are 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedrooms, as well as 30 permanent supportive housing homes intended to support our most vulnerable neighbors in Missoula. And then that Mullen site will also have the navigation center that I just mentioned briefly, which is intended to be a site where there is healthcare for the homeless clinic run by Partnership Health Center, as well as supportive services. So really trying to wrap around folks and meet their medical and behavioral health needs, as well as supportive service needs, getting them connected to the coordinated entry system, getting folks prioritized for housing resources, and trying to provide a little bit more of that wraparound care so that we can move folks forward. And then Bellagio is another big affordable housing project. The city's less involved in that. That's a Missoula Housing Authority project, and I should say Trinity is Missoula Housing Authority and Homeward Partnership. So Bellagio is Missoula Housing Authority, but we're very excited for the additional 200 apartments that they're building, 24 of which will be associated with project-based vouchers. And so we're really excited. Together it's 402 additional affordable homes, and so that's going to be just a really huge capacity add for our community in the coming years. And then I also just wanted to dive briefly into one of the value focuses that we're really focusing on and reaching home and with our coordinated entry system right now, which is equity. And so we've been really trying to pull some of our data more recently and look at how are we doing from an equity lens in our coordinated entry system and with our neighbors who are experiencing houselessness. And what we're seeing is that it's not great. It reflects what's similar across the country and what many of us already know, which is that there are significant inequities, particularly racial inequities in houselessness. And this data highlights it very clearly. Again, I won't go into it in great detail, but just some broad strokes overview of these two charts. What they're showing here is the coordinated entry system individuals based on race, and then the city of Missoula breakdown based on race. And you'll see if you look at just the white population alone, 91.1% of Missoula, this is based on recent census data, is white. People who identify as being white. And in a Missoula coordinated entry system, it's 63.2. So quite a difference in those numbers. And then you look at Native American or Alaskan individuals, and the number goes from 1.6% in Missoula to 14.5% in our coordinated entry system. 14.5% of people who are houseless are Native American or Alaskan, which is an exponential increase from the proportion within Missoula. And you see something similar with African American individuals. 0.8% of Missoulians are African American, 3.4% in our coordinated entry system are African American. So something that is, really disturbing and significant to us in our work, and something we are prioritizing in how we're approaching our houselessness services and trying to build in better systems to respond to that. Similarly, looking specifically at deaths and life expectancy, you see similar trends. The top graph here shows City of Missoula census data, again, by population, that same one, or by race, that same one we just looked at, but this time compared with deaths of houseless individuals in the City of Missoula. Again, this is in our coordinated entry system data. And you'll see 31% of those deaths are Native American. So just a really significant number there. That's a third of the deaths are Native American individuals or Alaskan individuals. And then if you look at life expectancy on the bar graph at the bottom, you see the state of Montana life expectancy rate as a whole on that far left column. And this is since 2017. And then you see a breakdown by race of life expectancy from, again, our coordinated entry system data. And I will say the African-American number there is based on just 2 individuals. So the data probably isn't significant enough to rely on that age 62 number there. But the Native American Alaskan is based at about a third of the data, again, is Native American or Alaskan individuals who have passed within our houselessness system. And life expectancy with that population is 48.1. That's the age. So just a really significant discrepancy there as well. And again, really important for us to be prioritizing this as we're approaching our work and figuring out how we can better be creating systems and structures that are equitable and responsive to this race data. And now we're diving into some other demographic variables as well to explore age and gender and where we're failing and where we need to do better by our neighbors. And then I'll just wrap up again with just some final things that we're working on. So in Reaching Home, we again just got approval from our city budget to move forward with an evaluation of the 10-year plan to end homelessness, which is what Reaching Home is originally based on. That plan ends in 2022, so next year that reaches its 10-year life cycle. And so we're really excited to kind of dive into looking at what we've accomplished, where we still need to go, and what the reality is on the ground today, and where there might be gaps in how we can build a next step to be responsive to our current situation. And we're also continuing with ongoing outreach efforts and having conversations about how to bolster our outreach initiatives and our outreach teams in Missoula, how to make sure those teams are really integrated with our law enforcement responses and our Parks and Rec responses, and just all of the different arenas that interface with people who are unhoused in Missoula, and how we can create more humanized, more responsive, more supportive engagement with these individuals to really wrap around them and meet their needs, rather than kind of kicking people out or telling them, go somewhere else without an alternate solution. And then we're also just continuing our Missoula Coordinated Entry System trainings. Sam Hilliard, who's my counterpart at Reaching Home, recently redid all of the coordinated entry system trainings, and we're really trying to bolster that system as a whole and strengthen how we operate, so that we can kind of strengthen the whole landscape of houselessness services throughout Missoula. So we're excited to be rolling those trainings back out and getting more people fully trained up in the system and housing problem solving and all of the pieces that are really critical to making sure we're effectively serving as many people as possible. So I think that's all I have today. I think I have a few minutes for questions, if that's a thing. I'm not sure if we're doing that, but
yeah. Well, and Emily, thank you very much for sharing all that information. I'll just add one note, is that a lot of that data is available because of a new partnership that we got started earlier in the year. The Poverello Center and the City of Missoula worked together on a grant from the St. Joseph's Community Partnership Fund. And if you don't know, that's St. Joseph's St. Joseph Hospital System merged with Providence Hospital System last year. And they gave us a grant to hire a data specialist that's working out the POV and also on the coordinated entry system data to get better data, to help us have more data-driven decision-making. And we're just really excited about that partnership. And that's a lot of those charts were made by Mike, who's the data specialist that's working with us. So we're just excited about that partnership. So if there are questions, feel free to put them in the chat or to raise your hand and we'll unmute you. One question that I'm seeing here is, what is the recommendation for respective use of houseless versus homeless versus other descriptions when we're talking about homelessness? And I know, Emily, you've been using houseless more recently and as part of your messaging. And I just, maybe if you could share that information, that would be great. Why you've switched that.
Yeah, great question. Thanks for asking. I'm more than happy to chat about that. So we have heard in conversations directly with many of the neighbors that we work with that the term homeless just really doesn't necessarily feel authentic to their experience, and that there's a difference between a home and a house. And many of these folks do identify Missoula, or maybe it's whatever structure they live in that looks non-traditional, as a home. And so they don't feel homeless. That's not an accurate descriptor for their experience. And so folks have suggested the term houseless or unhoused or other terms that kind of understand that distinction between kind of the relational and interpersonal experience of a home and the more kind of objective structure of an actual house. And so I'm trying to be responsive to that feedback and use the term houseless more often. And there's various other terms, really the focus is being person-centered. And so you'll often hear me say people who are unhoused, or someone who's experiencing houselessness, really always trying to put the person or the people before the actual term, just identifying that it's an individual who's having this experience, and the experience isn't their identity. It is an aspect of their experience at the moment, and it doesn't make up who they are. So that's kind of where that terminology comes from for me personally. And I think Reaching Home is just kind of trying to make that transition in our communications to be respectful and responsive and hearing that feedback.
Cool. Thank you. One thing that Anne asked earlier during the presentation, who was working on Trinity besides the Missoula Housing Authority, And just in case others might have missed that, Homeward is the other partner there that's helping develop those properties. Lynn asked, is there a written summary of the housing resources that you mentioned? And if so, can that be accessed somewhere?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. I had two links that I meant to share out in the chat. So this first one is kind of an overview of city-county initiatives happening throughout the city and the county. That's as of, I think that initially was, oh yeah, it says May 2021. So it's there have been some updates since then, but that's a great overview of stuff that I mentioned, as well as other things that are happening throughout the city and county that aren't necessarily city and county initiatives. For instance, the YWCA Meadowlark facility is on there, which is obviously hugely significant to our community, but not hosted by the city or the county. So I would definitely recommend going there. And then hopefully over the next few months, once the Operation Shelter pieces are more finalized, we'll have a centralized site and a good way to access information about that. There is a website for that right now, but the information is not particularly updated. So yeah, hopefully we'll have that in the future. And then the second link I just shared is actually the city's budget adopted budgets line items from this past budget cycle. And so that just kind of outlines some of the funding I was mentioning very briefly in my initial slide, as well as funding for other city departments, but it covers the touch points that I mentioned around the Poverello Center and the mobile support team, mobile care team, and some other elements that we just received funding for in the past city budget process.
Great. And then one last question before we move on to the other one is Dorsey asks, can the criteria for the use of the coordinated entry system be shared? So, or what is the criteria for the coordinated entry system? I know it's a little complicated, but I think it'd be helpful for people to understand how that system works a little bit.
Yes, so I won't go into a ton of detail. Sorry, I'm grabbing one more link to plop into the chat. This is the link to our coordinated entry system webpage. So you can find a lot more information there. Generally, the coordinated entry system, the main criteria is that you just have to be literally homeless according to the HUD definition, housing and urban development. And so that's someone who's literally experiencing homelessness right now. There are more specifics to that definition. I won't go into it right now, but that's the main criteria for accessing that system. We have two main access points in Missoula, 211 and the Poverello Center. And so folks who are experiencing being unhoused can contact either of those two locations and get entered into the system and hopefully get connected with services or have housing problem solving or diversion conversations. And go from there. But that's the main criteria at this point. In time, we hope to roll out a prevention arm of the coordinated entry system that is for folks who are at risk of becoming unhoused. And we are having some conversations with the state about that and hope to do that in the future, but it's not quite fully up and running at this point.
Cool. All right, so we are right on track in terms of time. So I'm going to go ahead and pivot over to the other Emily, Emily Harris Shears with the city, and let her talk a little bit more about the next piece. So Emily, I'll leave it to you now.
Hi, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. We never get that, Jesse. We never get the Emily and the other Emily. We never get that. Just razzing you. Thanks for having me. I'm Emily Harris Shears. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Administrator with the City of Missoula. And I really appreciate being invited to share a little bit about what we're up to about our focus on affordable housing in the city. So I'm going to give an overview of some of our generally affordable housing projects, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the Affordable Housing Trust Fund as well. So I'm going to start with some of our federal investments and just some of our project work, and then I'm going to talk about the trust fund. So Emily did a great job highlighting some of our projects, including Trinity and Bellagio. And so I'm going to try to skip over those, but I just want to kind of highlight that each year the City of Missoula Community Planning Development and Innovation Grants Team allocates funding, serves as a pass-through for funds administered by the state and federal housing funding sources, including HUD, which is the Department of Housing Urban Development, for the community development block grants and the home investment partnership, and also recently for the CARES Act funding. We work to report project spending and outcomes and ensure project compliance. And then we also work with developers, builders, organizations in the community to ensure that we're facilitating the builds of affordable housing projects so that we can increase affordable housing supply overall, really to support access for renters and buyers at a range of incomes. And this year in program year 2020, we've supported a number of projects, which include the Meadowlark, the Villaggio, Trinity, Habitat for Humanity, Clark Fork Commons, and then repairs and rehabilitation grants. And I can share these slides too if you want to include them in the recording update that you post, so you can see all of the outcomes. But as Emily highlighted, that this includes over 400 units of affordable housing that will come online in the next several years. And in program year 2020, this includes a $1.6 million investment from federal sources. And that's a number of different investment sources from the Community Development Block Grant, Home Investment Partnership, and then the CARES Act funding, which we were really appreciative to receive from the federal government. And there are a number of outcomes from program year 2020, but really what we're most proud of is just how many families and people who are experiencing houselessness or are unhoused were supported in a variety of ways. And that includes people being supported in their housing by it being preserved, by housing being rehabilitated, by people being supported through their experiences with COVID and being supported with housing during needing to be needing isolation support, emergency shelter support, and a variety of other needs that the emergency funding that our department receives was able to provide. And I'm not going to go through all of the outcomes, but they're here and then they'll be available for you to see as well. But you can see a number of people in our community benefited from the federal resources that were passed through and re-granted through our division. And currently there's a public comment opportunity open right now through the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, or the CAPER. And that's prepared each year. And it's an opportunity to report our progress to HUD. And there's an opportunity for the community to give public comment on the CAPER before it goes to HUD. And so if you'd like to participate in the public comment process, we encourage you to go to Engage Missoula, and the link is here. I can also put the link in the chat, but the link is here. It'll be on the slides as well. And it's through September 20th. So the slides for the CAPER and the report as well are on Engage Missoula, and you can give public comment on that. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So in 2019, partners in the community and the city of Missoula adopted a place to call home, which is the comprehensive housing policy for the city of Missoula. I know that the Poverello Center was engaged in that as well. And really it's centered around 4 strategic goals, which are kind of the guideposts for our housing policy for the city. And one of the key components of that was to establish an affordable housing trust fund under aligning and leveraging funding resources to support our housing goals. And the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, I'm short on time, so I'm abbreviating this a little bit, but the Affordable Housing Trust Fund was adopted in July of 2020. And it was one of the first strategies that was undertaken in the housing policy strategy because it provides a foundation for us to work from all of our other goals. It provides us a local flexible funding source to invest in affordable housing, to meet our housing goals, and to start to engage in our community in a way that we can't necessarily do with federal money, though federal money is really important. And absolutely, we're so incredibly glad to have it. We can't necessarily be as flexible or nimble with it as we can be with something like an affordable housing trust fund. And so with our flexible, and it's renewable, and it gives us the ability to kind of be strategic. And so with the establishment of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, we can set new goals and start to invest in the community's housing goals. So the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, as I mentioned, was adopted last July. It was adopted by ordinance, and it allows us, the ordinance sets some really key parameters around how it will be administered and utilized, who will oversee it, and what are the key foundational components of the trust fund. So there's some key revenue sources that are allowed to build the trust fund, which include a minimum revenue from general fund each year of $100,000. We can also build the trust fund from revenue from city, from sale of city owned land. And so we're actually waiting right now for a sale of a parcel of land from the Scott Street sale that will go into the trust fund and build the revenue of the trust fund. We can also build it with grants, private donations, bequests or contributions, principal from loans that were made from the trust fund, fines and penalties, and then other sources that we deem to be appropriate from time to time. So there's a lot of flexibility built into that. This is our anticipated fiscal year 2022 budget for the trust fund. We're anticipating the balance for the trust fund this year to be $3.4 million. You can see the the various sources, including American Rescue Plan Act dollars, the general fund, and then the land sale that I mentioned. And then the 726,000 is the carryover from the first seed of money. And then there's a variety of allowable funding activities in the trust fund. Really, it's all for the intent of the creation, the preservation, or the acquisition of affordable housing in the city of Missoula. I'm not going to go into more detail for time, but those are really the goals of the trust fund. And then I just want to name that we're in an open fund grant making round or award making round now. There's $300,000 available for projects that preserve or increase affordable housing in Missoula. We can make awards to nonprofits or for-profit organizations, and the projects that are new or in process or are eligible, they can be grants or loans, and we anticipate making a larger allocation in the winter of 2022. And if you want to learn more about the open round, it's open through September 24th, and you can learn more on Engage Missoula, and I'll put that link in the chat too. And if you want to learn more about our projects, both that are open or that are upcoming, please reach out to us. And this is all of our team on the housing team. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, Emily. We do have one quick question. In the data that you shared, are each of the program outcome numbers unduplicated?
I believe so.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, within each one of those categories, it's unduplicated, but probably not across categories. There might be.
Yeah, I bet people are, I'm not, this isn't my program, but I would say that sounds right, Jesse. I would say people are most likely allowed to be served in multiple programs, but I would say that from each category, it's unduplicated. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I see a couple of our data points up there, and I know that those are unduplicated.
Okay, then
so.
you would know.
Great. Any other questions for Emily before we move on to Jordan? Not seeing anything. Let's move on to Jordan. Jordan, you're up. We are not hearing you, Jordan.
How about now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to see everybody. I'm Jordan Lyons. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the housing specialist at Missoula County. And so I just started in February. I'm Missoula County's first housing specialist. So we're a little bit earlier along in our process than like the city with their A Place to Call Home plan. We're in the process of developing a strategy like that. And so we are working on that, and that's going to be kind of a strategy that will be based on the unique role of Missoula County, where you know, for some of the functions of Missoula County, like land use planning, we only serve the areas that are not inside the city, but we do also have programs like supporting emergency winter rental assistance, or other programs in the community assistance fund that include residents who live in the city too. So Missoula County has a really unique role to play, and it'll be really exciting to have this strategy in place. And I wanted to let everybody know, the big thing I wanted to let folks know is that we're close to having a draft of that policy available for public comment. That should be available on September 20th. And I want to put in the chat, we do have a webpage where the draft will go live. And currently you can get on there and just find a little bit of information and sign up to receive emails. And you will get an email when the draft is available for comment. So I wanted to share that. I'll put one more URL here in the chat, can't hurt, right? So if you go to, and I'll just tell you all, the URL is http://missoula.co/housing. And there you'll find a link to sign up for our email list and get an alert when that draft is available. And then it will be out on the 20th. And so I just basically wanted to let everyone know to stay tuned. And I'll just also put my email in the chat here too. And if you have any questions about that, you can feel free to reach out to me anytime. But if you look week after next, you'll see a draft of that plan ready for your comment too. Thank you.
And I know there's a lot of links that have been getting put up there, and I'll look to my colleague Sarah and say that we will definitely do a follow-up email for this one to everybody that attended and make sure that all of those links are in there, because there's a bunch of them there. We wouldn't expect you to try to save them all or click them on them all. Does anybody have any questions for Jordan? All righty. So thank you, Jordan, Emily, and Emily. I just want to say that, like, you know, we work very closely on a daily basis with our partners at the city and the county. And we know that as an organization, you know, our job is to work with people that are having the experience, the current crisis of homelessness in our community, and help them literally stay alive. And we really lean on and really rely on the work that the city and the county are doing to make sure that these long-term solutions, like making sure we have more housing availability for the folks that we're working to move into. So it's such a critical role that they play, and then the partnership that we have with them. And we are just absolutely thankful for their time day in and day out in terms of making sure we have the resources that we need to do the work that we do. And also just for taking time today to talk to you all about it. We feel that it's important for you as our supporters to know about these partnerships and how this work gets done kind of on that bigger picture. So without that, I'm going to run through a few things that are coming up in terms of how you all can, what's kind of the ongoing support and things that are happening at the POV. And then there'll be a little bit of chance for some more questions and concerns at the end. So, but I'm just going to run through some of these first. First, you might have seen the news article that was in the paper about the awesome folks at St. Francis Xavier Church who come in and help us with our sandwich making. We definitely need more volunteers helping out in the kitchen and other places in the community, and are just so thankful for our volunteers. So please consider, if you haven't signed up already, to consider signing up on our website, thepoverellocenter.org/volunteer, and to get signed in and help out there. Kitchen and other volunteer support is critically important right now, and we appreciate your support there. We are also sending out a current need email every Friday. If you would like to get on that email list, feel free to just drop your name in the chat. We actually already have your email address because you signed up for this. But if you drop your name in the chat, we can make sure you're subscribed to that email list. And it's just a weekly email that just kind of says, hey, this is what we need this week. It changes from week to week. And it's a really great way to know what's going on in terms of what kind of current needs we have, particularly around those in-kind donations that we rely on so much. Next is pretty soon, in the next week or so, many of you will be getting a letter in the email from us, from our volunteer and kitchen manager, Zach Malden, with our annual fall appeal. Every year, Town Pump has given a match for what we call the Town Pump Appeal. They've been a critical partner for our food programs for years and years and years. Well, this is the 20th year of their Montanans Helping Montanans campaign. And they've upped their match to us this year and to nonprofits all across the state. So it's going to be a $25,000 match this year. Really encourage you to take a look at that and giving us this time and helping us meet that match. We're so thankful for Town Pump and all they do for us all year round. And so just want to check that out. And the letter really has an update about what's been going on with the kitchen. And I think it's looking pretty good in terms of what's happening there. So keep an eye out in your mail for that. Again, all of these things will be in an email that we send up afterwards. So I know that I'm talking kind of fast. Believe it or not, Pumpkin for the POV is right around the corner. We're super excited about our annual fundraiser where we sell pumpkins at sales locations all across town. Last year we raised, I think, $30,000 to support the Poverello Center. We'd like to hit 50 this year. The pumpkins are looking great. We got to go visit the pumpkins out at their little farm a couple weeks ago, and harvest is going to be happening on September 26th. And you can go to the online portal again at thepoverellocenter.org/volunteer and sign up to be part of the pumpkin harvest. It is super fun. It's outdoors. It's super family friendly. And you get to run around, pick pumpkins. Everybody that comes and volunteers gets to take a pumpkin home with them. And so really encourage folks to join us for that fun event on the 26th. Location and all that stuff will get sent to you once you register. It'll be the Sunday, the 26th of September from 1 to 3:30. And then finally, our next month's online supporter update will be October 5th at the same time. We're going to be talking more about our food programs, giving an update about food programs. Jared Bell, Zach Malden, and Tyler, and I'm spacing on Tyler's last name. I should have done last names. Tyler's our food rescue truck driver. We're going to be on talking about our amazing food programs and what all they're doing, how they've had to adapt this year with COVID. So we're just excited about that one. You can sign up for that by going to the same link you went to sign up for this one to get that update. We'll also probably talk a little bit more about Pumpkins for the POV and all the fun stuff happening there. So that's really the updates that we have for right now. Does anybody have any questions that they want to bring up here? You can either raise your hand and we'll unmute you, or we will, you can type it into the chat and we'll answer it through the chat. Or I'll answer it after you chat it. Jill, is there anything you'd like to add just as a wrap up?
I don't think so. I just really appreciate Jordan, Emily, and Emily giving us an update. I know there are new things happening all the time, so it's great to get that information from you all. And just thank you to the community for all of your support over the past many years and ongoing. We just really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'll add my thanks. You know, we could not do our work without all of you. A lot of you are real regular volunteers or regular donors, and we just so appreciate that support. Really, the work to make sure our most vulnerable neighbors have care and support is a community effort. And the fact that I think we had at the top of this about 33 people attending this particular online supporter update just tells us how much the community really cares about those who are experiencing houselessness in our community. So thank you all very much. Feel free to reach out if you've got other questions. My email address is jjager@thepoverellocenter.org. Happy to answer any questions offline, and looking forward to seeing you either through Missoula or in at a future online support update. And yes, there will be a link to this video that will get sent out. It will also get posted on our website in the news section of the website. I'll also say just an aside, just because we do have a minute or two, we're really excited. We got accepted into a partnership with the University of Montana's business school to get a brand new website this year. It's going to be a little bit of a process as we work through a group of students on getting it built. But by next spring, we're going to have a brand new website that's going to be hopefully super user friendly for all of you supporters. And just wanted to say that we're excited about that opportunity coming up soon. We've had that same website, I think, for like 10 years. So, and in website years, that's like, you know, probably 80 years. Anyways, thank you all very much. And we appreciate all of your support.